Hey guys, it's Mrs. Presniak. Welcome back to art. I want to apologize for not having your art lesson out on Thursday like it normally is. Last week I was under the weather and not feeling well, and I'm feeling a lot better now, so let's get on with your art lesson. Alright, so we talked about organic versus geometric shapes last week, and we traced our shapes and we filled them in. So some of you had markers and that's what you used to fill in your shapes, and some of you may have not had markers, and so you had a paper where you colored your shapes in with crayons. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the marker first because I'd like everybody to see that, even if you're not using marker, because it's really cool. And so yeah, you're gonna need, if you did crayons, you're gonna need a black crayon today. If you use marker, then you're gonna need your paper. You're gonna need a little container of water and a paintbrush. If you don't have a paintbrush, you could use, honestly, you could use your hands or your fingers. This is gonna get a little messy, so I would suggest putting like some newspaper or something down, paper towel underneath. I'm even going to cover my surface here with some paper because I know that there's gonna be a little water on there. So let's get started. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I am going to make sure you can see this okay. Alright. Adjust that a little bit. There we go. Alright. So I'm going to dip my paintbrush into the water, and I'm not going to squeeze it out because I want it really wet, because I want the water to drip onto my different shapes. I don't want to get my paper soaked because then it's just going to be a saggy mess, but I want to get some big drops of water on my shapes, and then quickly, especially with the regular computer paper, you want to pick it up and kind of start moving it around. It's almost like a game though. You want to like move it around and try to keep the water on the paper if you can. Moving it back. Whoa! Back and forth. I can't remember what game this is like, but it is like a game. There's one I'm thinking of. I just can't think of the name of it. And you want to try to get the colors to mix with other colored shapes. Kind of like that. As much as you can. But again, you don't want it too wet, because then I would have a saggy, messy paper. If a little bit gets off your paper onto the paper here, that's fine. Okay, then you're gonna have to sit and let it dry. Okay, so try putting it maybe by a heat vent or out like by a window, by the sun. I have a paper here that is almost dry, and again, this is on regular paper. So it's not turning out exactly the way I would do it as if we were in class, the real thin computer paper. This paper was a little bit thicker. This was drawing paper. And I actually have another one that I want to do here that I think is going to turn out the best. And this is actually watercolor paper. So I'm going to go ahead and put big droplets of water on this because it's watercolor paper, which means it's meant to get wet. So I'm curious to see how this one will turn out. I think it's going to turn out really cool. So we'll see. The water bubbles should, or water droplets. Oh yeah, that's really cool. Ah. So this paper, since it's watercolor paper, it doesn't absorb the water quite as much, and it lets the water roll around on the paper a little more. That one will be really cool. All right, so I'm gonna let all of these dry. And in the meantime, I'm going to get rid of this paper and wipe off the surface. And we're going to get on to the, I just got a little spot on my paper. Oh well. So for this one, you're going to need a black crayon. And it's going to be pretty simple. So if we go back and look at our organic shapes, our geometric and organic shapes, we already have our geometric shapes on our paper, right? And I drew some examples of other organic shapes here. So that's what we're going to do with our black crayon. So we have our our geometric shapes, and you're just going to start with your crayon. And it's kind of nice because you're basically making up your own shapes. They shouldn't be squares, triangles, rectangles. They should not be they should not be geometric shapes. They should be organic shapes. So I can start wherever I want. And I'm going to press down pretty hard with my crayon. And I'm just going to, I want to make sure that my line's really dark and bold. And you don't have to make us any certain amount. I would just say kind of put them throughout your paper. Just like that. And then what I'd like you to do is find all the spots of your organic shapes that are not, this is going to be kind of hard to explain, but basically, so think of this one right here, right? All in this area is yellow, but right here, so all the spots where it's white inside of your organic shape, I want you to color it in black. Like that, just to make it a little more interesting. All right, so I'm going to speed this up, and then I'll see you when it's finished, and hopefully our papers will be dry. The other papers will be dry by that time. All right, there we go. I think I got inside all those shapes. So what's cool is, like, inside our organic shapes, there's even more organic shapes, because if you take the shape of just the yellow inside the circle that's inside our organic shape, that's an organic shape. So this right here, this right here, all this orange. So yeah, it turned out pretty cool. All right, let's move back on to the one where we use marker, and I'll show you what to do there. All right, so my paper is now dry for the most part, and what you're gonna need is either a thin, like, black Sharpie. It could be a thin one, it could be a regular size one, maybe a black marker. If you don't have a black Sharpie or a black marker, you could use a black colored pencil. Crayon might work. You just really want to make sure, if you are using just a regular marker and not a permanent one, you want to make sure that your paper is 100% completely dry, because otherwise that regular Crayola black marker, if your paper is wet at all, it'll like bleed and it will not just be like a little line. So this part it's kind of simple but a little tricky. You're basically going to trace around all the water spots. So anywhere where, like, it's not just the circle, and it's kind of outlined. You'll see what I'm talking about once I start. So for example, right here, I'm gonna trace, kind of just do a squiggly line all around here, like anywhere where I see these little spots. And once I start outlining all these, you might see it a little bit better, but right now you have organic shapes and geometric shapes on your paper, right? So we started with what kind of shapes? Geometric. We started with those squares, triangles, circles, rectangles, and then by putting the water on our shapes and moving that water around, it created organic shapes. So there's like an organic shape that's pretty clear, you can see. This one right here, okay, I love doing this. A lot of times in class we would look at different shapes and see what they look like. I don't know if you could tell or not, but that kind of looks like an animal or like a dinosaur. It might be kind of hard to see. So that's one thing you can do is while you're tracing these different organic shapes, use your imagination to come up with what you think they look like. There's almost like a diamond shape right there. So you can kind of use your own judgment on where to stop with this, because I could go on and on here with a bunch of these, kind of. But I'm gonna do just the main areas where it's pretty obvious. So this one right here almost looks like a person's head and their arm raised up a little bit, doesn't it? Kind of reminds me of when you look up in the sky and see different clouds and think of the shapes that they are and what they look like. There's lots of organic shaped clouds, that's for sure. All right, let's see here. All right, I'm gonna speed this up and I will see you guys when it is finished. There we go. I think I'm done. And again, you can kind of use your own judgment and say, let's say, I see this spot right here and it's like a light colored spot. I could go over that and create that organic shape. But for the most part, I would just do the obvious. And that's it. So go ahead and snap a picture. Remember, if you did this one, you're using marker and Sharpie. If you did the one where you colored with crayon because you didn't have marker, you'll just be snapping a picture of this and uploading it. And I cannot wait to see whichever one you did, because these are one of my favorite projects to do every year. I love doing these. They all turn out so unique and so different. So snap a picture, upload it, and I can't wait to see. Have a great week, guys. See you next week.